gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be checking out the funky styles, the cool beats of Cowboy Bebop Boardgame Boogie. Now, I'm sure she's giving me a strange look. I just happen to have Yoko Kanno's excellent opening song stuck in my head. Tank, absolutely love it. So, I know where I'm coming from. You don't need to know. Don't worry about it. Now, just to tell you a little bit more about the designers and publishers of the game, there's a whole slew of names on the box. It is designed by Team Lynnvander, Thomas M. Grofton, and Josh Dirksen, published by Jasco Games. Then we also have Sunrise on there as one of the licensors, as well as Funimation. So yeah, lots of people collaborated in letting this game get released. With that being said, Julie's going to tell you more about the game itself.
It's a cooperative game that plays 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and above. The box says 60 to 75 minutes. Our experience as 2 players, it's probably a little bit under that. I'd say more like 45 minutes.
No, I definitely think the lengths will scale with the amount of players. Also, the more experience you have with the game or co-op games, it can be played even faster. I think we could have done it in 30 minutes with the 2 of us if we were just like boom, 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 boom.
Probably.
Well, to tell you just a little bit more about what you're going to be doing in the game, well, this is Cowboy Bebop, where you are bounty hunters traveling around the hard-scrabble solar system, a little bit like The Expanse, but better technology, definitely.
Okay.
No, it doesn't take like 2 years to fly from one end of the system to the other. You are going to be chasing your bounties, but also working on dealing with your own personal issues. So, in order to win the game, you must manage your life expenses. So, catch bounties, get some moolah, keep on flying, a little bit like Firefly. But
ensure you're eating.
Yes, exactly. But most importantly, resolve your session, which is your personal issues. You've got 2 parts. Once all players have resolved their session, you will have won the game. With that being said, what time is it, Julie?
Well, I think it's time to grab our drinks.
Well, they're often grabbing their drinks and smoking in the show.
Well, no smoking.
No smoking, but we're grabbing our drinks, grabbing our best friend.
Now we're good. Take it to the table.
Almost got that one out there.
Yep.
Almost got that on the table.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't have happened. No, but we will take the game to the table.
Definitely. Now let's take a look at the components for Cowboy Bebop Boardgame Boogie. We're going to start with the game board. Now, it's very much a simple board. This represents the Bebop, also your leads, and it has the bounty track that goes across the top. So we only have 1 board for the game, but we do also have the different sectors that you're going to be flying to as you play the game. We've got the Jovian system. You notice that each sector has the same 4 types of locations. So Jovian system, the Belt, Earth, Venus, and Mars. There's also different terrain types, so keep that in mind. When you're trying to track down a bounty, you're going to need the sector, the location, and the proper terrain type. Now, here we've got some of the tokens you're going to be using in the game. You'll notice there's a use token for each of these locations. They can reset, but once you've used them, you can't use them again for a little bit. Then we have the tracker tokens here. They'll track your resources, fuel, food, and Wulon. As you can see, well, this one's upside down. They are double-sided with a +10 and then just the standard size. We then have the Bebop, and you'll notice that it's rounded. So the reason why is the fishing trawler, when it's in a system, you can just place it around the system. I do like that. It's a neat aspect of the game that I find it looks cool. It makes it feel like the Bebop is orbiting the system or the planet. Now here we've got our terrain lead cards. Well, these are all of the different lead cards. So we'll take a look at them. There's 3 types. So I said terrain. So as you can see, desert, mountain, water, ruins, urban. You've got the different colors. We've got the location lead cards, which will tell you what location they're at in the sector. As you can see, bar, contact, spaceport, or the shop, one of the places where they can be. And then lastly, we've got the sector lead cards. As you can see, the Belt, Jovian System, Mars, Venus, and Earth. So that's what you get from the lead deck. Now, before we talk about the sessions and some of the cards here, we'll keep going across some of the other components that we have at the top. Here are the different contacts you can get. As you can see, using stills from the anime and very thematic to each episode that they were in. So the police officer, you can discard one piloting to draw a lead, getting one of the lead cards, or spend 1,000 Mulan to draw 2 leads from any deck. So you'll be needing to meet up with your contacts to track down the different bounties. And here are the bounty cards, all characters from the show. I wonder if there's 26 of them. I don't remember if there was just one bounty every show. I'm going to count it out quickly. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18, which makes sense. Not every episode had a bounty. So you can see on the bounty cards, sort of what the bounty is, what you actually get after expenses, where they start on the track, what cards you need to play from your skill deck in order to chase down the bounty. Also, don't forget their location is important. It may be a place on the board. So you can see here it's a spaceport. It may also be the sector, meaning you got to have that sector. So keep that in mind. You also need the terrain type, but we've yet to see a terrain type from the games we've played on the bounty cards. So these are the cards you need to play. Then the events you need to draw and resolve their jam effect. Don't worry. We're going to talk about that as we get into the how to play. Now we'll take a look at the event cards. And there's actually 2 different types of event cards. Now the top 8 here, I think, there we go, we've got all of them, are the vicious cards. Now you're not going to be playing with all of them unless you're playing at a higher difficulty. So as you can see, vicious shows up, very thematic to the show, and just causes you lots of problems. Now, a certain number of these will be shuffled into the deck depending on what difficulty level you're playing at. Then you've got event cards, which are all very thematic for the show. You'll see what they cost you. Maybe it's either going to be spending a food or moving your bounties across the bounty track. Then you have the effect that you have to resolve. So you can do one or the other. And then these jam effects are only in play when you're drawing them for either your session, which we'll talk about in a moment, or when you're trying to resolve a bounty chase. Now, let's take a look at the characters. So we've got only 4 characters. I know I was talking to Cyberbard. He wanted to play Ein, but don't worry. Ein is there. He is actually a joint skill card that anyone can use. So super helpful, always there when you need him. So just didn't have room to place him out. Now let's look at the characters. We've got Edward, and now each character has their own specific abilities. Some may be actions, other ones are just certain things that you can do. So it's definitely very cool and very useful. Now the tiles are double-sided, but it doesn't change anything. Every character has their own character standee as well. So as you can see, we've got Jet Black. All of his stuff is very thematic. You'll see that, Ed's primarily one is hacking. Those when you're looking at Jet's lean time, so action, spend 1 food, 1 fuel, or 1,000 Mulan to gain 1 food, 1 fuel, or 1,000 Mulan. Just a great way for you to, sort of reassess your resources. And then you've got your skip craft, so your craft that will let you fly around the solar system when you're not connected with the Bebop. And once again, you got Jet's standee. You also see a list up here of what character abilities they have in their respective decks. So we've got Spike Spiegel with his ship, the Swordfish. And you'll notice that his abilities, like Jet, are a little bit more combat focused, but he does have a really cool hacking ability as well. And one with the Swordfish means that you can fly your zip craft without spending fuel. Don't worry, we'll explain all that once again in the how to play. So Faye, she's got her own zip craft. I think I said skip craft earlier. Whoops. Zip craft is what I meant to say. So Faye Valentine, she can be persuasive. So you can play a combat. So after drawing a contact, reduce its requirements by 1,000 Mulan. Big spender, which is pretty neat as well. After interacting with a bar, spend 1,000 Mulan instead of placing a use token, which can be very useful. So all in all, very thematic abilities to all the different characters that you have in the game. Now, I'm only going to look at one of the character decks because they're all pretty much the same. So this is Ed's, you get some stills from the show, and then the skill card that this card represents. For example, this one is investigation. This one can be investigation or hacking. This one here is straight up combat. Once again, it's an or card. This is an and, so it counts as double hacking with Ed. Here we've got some piloting cards for Ed, and that's how everyone's deck works. We'll just take a quick look at them so you can see. It is also a little bit focused on what their abilities are. So Jet's a little stronger in investigation. Each character only has one double ability. So Spike's is combat, and Faye's is piloting, which I almost thought would have been maybe Spike, but Faye's got the double piloting card. And once again, all stills from the show. Very thematic. Now, last thing we're going to look at are the session cards. Before the session cards, let's take a look at one of the other things that we didn't have on camera. The reference cards. You have 4 reference cards, so you've got a nice quick reference for the player's turn sequence and what all of the different actions you can do and that, for example, like the interact actions are with the different locations. Very handy to have. You also have that on the back of the rule book, nice, big, and in color, so always helpful to have around. Rule book is very straightforward. I do like the graphic design and the layout set up for the rule book. Find it very easy to learn the game. So lastly, the sessions and how you're going to be winning Cowboy Bebop, because besides bounty hunting, the show is all about their personal issues. So these cards, each character has 3 of them. You're going to draw one randomly at the start of the game. What you're going to be doing is trying to resolve each session, well, whichever one you've drawn for the game, part 1 and part 2, dealing with your personal issues in order to win the game. Everyone must resolve their part 1 session before you can start working on your part 2, and you're going to need the help of other players in order to resolve it. So there you have it. We've taken a look at the components that we have in Cowboy Bebop Boardgame Boogie. Now keep it right here as we're going to teach you how to set up the game and then how to play. Now let's teach you how to set up Cowboy Bebop Boardgame Boogie. Now I've done just the basic setup. We have the board out, which represents the Bebop. We have the 5 sectors set up. We're going to be doing a 1 or 2 player setup with our characters of Spike Spiegel and Faye Valentine. We've got our reference card here, and I've just placed the terrain deck, location deck, and sector lead decks where they go under the board. So as you can see, the game is a little bit of a space hog. We have all of the used tokens piled up right here. We've got the bounty cards, the contact cards, and the event cards where they'll be visible on camera. I need to leave some room in this area to move the Bebop. That being said, let's start setting up the game. So we do place the Bebop in orbit around Mars with our 2 characters, Spike first, followed by Faye in the Bebop. We then place their Skipcraft in the hangar of the Bebop. Now we have our sessions here, and these aren't going to be on camera. I just don't have a great way to show them to you and keep them out. But as it's not really all that relevant for teaching you how to play the game, they will be visible when we need them. So we'll start with Faye. We shuffle them up, and then we deal one of them to the character. So we've got Honky Tonk Woman, how this would normally sit when you've got more table spaces like this, with what needs to be done to complete her session visible above. Part 2, you only show once you've completed part 1, or all of the players have completed part 1, depending on how you're playing the game. So ideally it would sit like this, but for the moment, it's going to sit just below her off camera. Now we're going to want to also have her deck of cards. So as you can see, her deck is fully loaded. All of her skills are currently available. Same thing with Spike. His deck is fully loaded. All of his stuff is readily available. We will shuffle up his sessions. We'll draw one, deal his sessions. So we've got the Real Folk Blues, which once again would be set up like this. but will be just not visible as it will be off camera. Don't worry, when we teach you how to resolve sessions, we'll make sure that it is visible. Now with regards to the event deck, we need to take 6 of the 8 vicious cards for a regular difficulty playthrough. You can find the difficulty rules, I believe it's on page 16 of the rule book, so let's just take a quick look. Sorry, page 18 of the rule book, you can find the solo rules and the difficulty adjustments. So for a standard difficulty game, shuffle these cards. You're going to take out 6 of them. So 6 vicious cards. The last 2, return them to the box. Then you mix them in quickly with the rest of the event deck. Now just doing a quick shuffle. I'll shuffle it a little bit more off camera. So the event deck is ready. Just need to shuffle up the contacts. They're good to go. We've already shuffled up these decks. Now we need to prep our bounties. So we're going to just deal out 3 bounties. 1, 2, 3. These bounties then get placed at their starting location at the bounty track. We can see where they were last seen, what it takes to beat them. So we've got Rint Silonius, who starts at space 3. We have Gren, who starts at space 4. And we also have Whitney Matsumoto, who starts at space 3. Now, the way this would go, you would just place them one on top of the other. What I'm going to do for the purposes of the how to play and the limited camera space we have, I really don't want to have a card that's just going to go up and off camera. So this will be one of the ones I return to the box. We'll draw another one. This guy starts at space 5. So yeah, I did stack the deck. Just wanted to make sure that we had something that was nicely visible. Then you will take the next 6 cards, 5, 6, for normal difficulty, and these will make up the rest of the bounties. You have a total of 9 bounties, 3 in play, 6 in the deck. These then go back to the box. And there you have it. As you can see, it doesn't take too long. We've now set up Cowboy Bebop Boardgame Boogie, and we're going to zoom back at you, or zip back at you with the zip craft. I keep thinking I call them skip crafts from time to time, but because you're skipping around the solar system. In any case, we will zip back at you in a moment and start teaching you how to play the game. As I was getting ready to start teaching you how to play the game, I looked down and realized that I neglected to finish the setup. Now, it's not going to take all that long. We just need to set our oolong, fuel, and food to space 5 on the track. Now, if you ever go past 10, you flip it over, so 12, all the way up to 20. Any resources above 20 are lost. And then, how could I forget Ein? Ein needs to be someplace where all players can reach them, because when you're taking, when you're trying to complete a challenge with regards to a chase or a session, you may use Ein if you need to, and Ein is essentially a wild card that represents any one of these different skills. So that being said, now the game is set up, and I'll be coming back at you, well, zipping right back at you with the how to play. Now we're going to teach you how to play Cowboy Bebop, the board game. In order to do that, we're going to play just a normal round with Faye Valentine and Spike Spiegel. We'll also cover all of the different interact actions that you can do in the sectors. Afterwards, we'll take a quick break and come back at you with the chase action to go after bounties, and then how you will resolve your sessions. Now, I do recommend that you do keep the rule book or the reference card available, as it will tell you what actions you can do. Each player may perform 3 actions, so you can see the turn sequence. We're going to draw an event, perform 3 actions. Actions may be move within the same sector, between the Bebop and another location, or between 2 locations. We can fly the Bebop, move it to another sector. We may interact with any of the locations. We may enter, exit our zip craft. We can fly the zip craft. We can rest. We can also try to do our session or chase. Important thing to note that other characters in the same sector, so the Bebop is in the Mars sector, it counts, can help you with these two actions. Now, let's start with Faye. Let's draw an event card and see what's going to happen. So our first event is actually really lucky. Antonio, Carlos, and Jobim. Nothing of consequence happens. You put up with the 3 old men bickering and move on. No negative effects. Good way to start our game. We'll spend our first action moving. We're going to interact with the contact. We need to place a use token here. Now once, and I'm not going to make sure that they match for the moment, you have 5 use tokens on a location, then they would all reset and you're able to use those same locations again. So Faye spend her second action interacting, so we'll take the contact card, we draw it, so we may discard 1 combat to draw a lead, or discard 2 piling to choose a lead deck, combine its deck and discard pile and gain a lead of our choice. Not that bad, but really not that useful. The discard pile is going to be off camera. Now, Faye will have to decide to discard a combat because we need to get some leads. Now, we really need to find either a bar or a shop. So we'll try with the location deck and see what we get. Lucky for us, we've got the bar. So we're starting to find Rent or Gren. We're in good shape. Now for Faye's third action, she may move to another location and then potentially use its ability on her next turn or move back to the Bebop. So that's what she's going to do. That will be the end of her turn. But before we do that, let's just take a look at what the other interact actions are, as well as the rest action. Now, for the purposes of teaching you about the bar and the rest action, I'm going to just remove the reference card here. We're going to move Faye over, and we're going to play a whole bunch of our cards as if they'd been played. Now, if you take the rest action, you may take the first 2 cards and then add them back into your hand. So the way you discard them, pay attention, it is very important during the game. Now, if you've happened to use Ein and they're in your discard pile, either at the front or through the bar action, once Ein is returned, they go into the common area for any player to use. Now, when you interact with a bar, you regain all the cards that are in your discard pile. They go back into your hand, and you are good to go. So that's one action. Now, if you're in the shop, you may then spend Oolong, and it's listed right here, to buy food. So any amount, if I want to spend 4,000 Oolong to buy 4 food, we would then do that once again. Once they're used, place the use token. That would be our shop action. And then for the spaceport, it's the same thing. You spend Oolong to gain fuel. So 4,000 Oolong to gain 4 fuel. So those are the different interact actions that you may do. Also, don't forget that during your turn, you can spend one of your cards to trigger these abilities. So persuasive, you'd have to spend a combat. Big spender, you'd have to spend 1,000. You have to spend your hacking and 1,000 Oolong. And charming, so after interacting with a shop or spaceport, gain 1 food or fuel by spending an investigation. You just do that by playing the card from your hand when you meet the requirements on your player card. Now, for Faye's last action, she's going to move back to the Bebop. Now, we need to find some more information, and it's Spike's turn. So Spike will draw an event. We have to spend 1 food. That's what it says right here, so we automatically spend a food. Now we may discard 1 piloting to move to a location in the sector that you have a sector lead for. We have no sector leads. That's useless, meaning we cannot perform this action. So the other thing we have to do, we can discard 1 hacking to draw a lead, which is frankly a little bit better. Move Spike over a bit, go through his cards. He has a hacking. We'll play it on the discard right here. And we're going to draw a lead. well, we've got the bar. I want to know where we need to go to, so we're going to take the sector so it's in Venus. Maybe we can get the right terrain type if we move to Venus. Now, there's a few different things that I can do as Spike. This is not going to be what I'm going to do during my turn. If we hadn't gotten the event that we did, and it's discarded off camera, which let me get another lead. What I would have done, so we'll just give you an example as to why you would want to use your zip craft potentially. Not sure where you're going yet. You can spend an action to get into your zip craft. You can spend a fuel for a free movement, meaning I'd spend 1 fuel. I am then there. I can spend my second action to take a look at a contact. So in this point, it'd be draw 2 leads from 1 lead deck. Pretty cool. So I would have drawn then 2 leads. And just to keep things different, we'll draw the terrain cards. Now I could then once again spend a fuel to zip back to the Bebop, not taking an action. Spike may also spend 1 piloting to not spend fuel and zip back and forth to the Bebop. So that's one of his special abilities. The other thing that I can then do if I want to stay here, I can spend an action to get out of my zip craft, which means we just turn it down. And I like to stand my guy on top of it to say that he got out of the zip craft, which would then, so his first was going in, his second was moving and interacting, now he got out of it, meaning I could move around the planet and eventually get back into the ship and zip around, well, zip back to the hangar on another turn. So remember, when you are in your zip craft, any movement you make costs 1 fuel. So that's just an example of how you would use your zip craft. I'm going to put the fuel back. We're going to go back to where we were. Right after this card, we'll put the 2 terrain cards back. And what we're going to do is still spend a fuel. Well, we had our lead here, which was Venus. So we got Venus and a bar. We need proper terrain. So we're going to move a Bebop for an action. We're then going to move to the contact. We're going to draw our contact, which once again was Laughing Bull. Draw 2 leads from 1 deck, or spend 1,000 Mulan to choose a lead deck. Combine it, pick a specific one, not going to do it. So we're going to draw 2 leads from 1 deck. So we're going to draw Urban and Water. Not good, we needed Ruins, or I believe it's, it says right there, Mountains, in order to have tracked down one of our contacts. Well, not contacts, our bounties. So that would be 1 turn for each player, and then once again be phase turn. You draw an event card and once again resolve it. So that is essentially what you're doing during the game. You're moving around the solar system, using your resources, trying to keep them as high as possible by capturing bounties until you're able to have the resources to resolve your sessions. Now, depending on what you have, like starting out on Mars, you can sometimes resolve the sessions right away. It just can be fairly costly. So as you can see, Real Folk Blues, Shop on Mars, or a bar on Mars to resolve Honky Tonk Woman. Now, what I am going to do right now, we're going to just go through this deck. I'm going to place the water at the bottom. We'll draw a terrain lead of Mountain, meaning that we could potentially bust someone at the bar, because I just want to have the right cards out to show you what happens when we want to initiate a chase, how the characters can work together, and then we'll take a look at resolving the sessions, and Julie and I will then come back at you with our review of the game. So keep it right here, as we're going to zip back in a moment to cover chase and sessions. So where we left off, it was phase turn, and we're going to resolve a chase, but before we can do any of that, we always have to draw an event card, see what we get. So in this case, we must spend 1 food. It's a mob hit. We may discard 1 piloting. You spot the Maboons and fling into your zip crop before they know what happened, or discard 2 random cards. Well, as we're going to be doing some stuff at this bar, I'm just going to choose to discard 1 piloting and meet the requirements. Now, before I do anything with Faye, we're going to rest, get these 2 cards back in our hand. So that's our first action. Our second action would be to move to the bar. Now we must spend our leads. So we are on Venus in a bar. That matches the mountain terrain. And we may then go after any one of the bounties that meets these requirements. So last seen at a bar. Last seen at a bar. We're going to go after Rint though, because as you can see, our food is getting low. You lose the game whenever you get down to the starving level. He gives us 3,000 Wulon and 2 food. Now, how we resolve that is by playing 2 piloting and then resolving a jam. Perfect for Faye, as she's got the double piloting. So we just play that. We then draw an event card. We must resolve the jam symbol at the bottom, which is hacking. So we must play a hacking symbol. She has the hacking symbol. It is now played. We then resolve the bounty. He goes into the bounty discard pile. We will then draw another bounty. So he would start at location 3. Last seen on Mars, meaning to go after him, we must have a Mars sector lead. We now gain the reward, which is 3,000 Wulon and 2 food. So that is how you're going to chase down bounties. Now this was an easy one. As you can see from this one right here, it's a harder one. So let's just imagine that we've been chasing him down. I know the requirements weren't met, but just for the sake of teaching you how the chase would work together, we then have to discard the cards that we have. We need 1 combat. Faye has that. We need then 3 investigation, which Faye has. But this also costs 1 of her hacking. And then she has just 1 hacking, meaning she doesn't have quite enough to do it by herself. She could then use Ein if she so chooses. So this would be an example of, let's just say Spike's over here. She could spend Ein, meeting all the requirements, but then we got to hope we get lucky that with the 3 gems we have to then draw, we're able to resolve it. Let's see what would happen. So we get an investigation, we get vicious, and then we get another vicious. It's actually really not overly horrible, except we don't have any more investigations, meaning we automatically lose. We still must resolve these vicious cards. So we'd have to spend 1 food, and then spend 1 fuel if possible, and then discard 2 random cards if possible. If drawn during a chase, you discard them before resolving the gem effects. So what does that mean? Well, you can play all your cards to meet the requirements, but you'd have to discard 2 cards before resolving the jam effects. So boom, we discard these 2. And as you can see, Faye can't do anything. So we completely lose. All our resources are wasted, and even our leads. So that's one of the reasons why Vicious is so dangerous, especially when he's drawn at a certain point, and why you're going to want to work together. Now, for example, Spike had been in this location. Well, Spike is there. We lost tons of our resources, phased down the 1 card, but we need an investigation. Spike could help out, play the investigation, and boom, success. We would have completed our event. So that is how you would resolve chases. And I didn't complete these negative effects right here because this was just an example. So I'm going to place these cards in the discard pile. We've already seen them. And we're going to just actually have both characters redraw both of their hands. We're going to reset Ein. And we're going to take a look at how you would resolve their session. Now, for the session, the characters would have to be on Mars. Spike would need to be in the shop on Mars. Faye, in her case, would have to be in a bar on Mars. Now, As you can see, the amount of resources that they take. Resolving 2 sessions in the same turn can be very, very difficult. But we'll take a look at what you need to do to resolve each of them. And once you resolve both of them, for all characters in the game, you win. So let's say we want to resolve Spike's session. The reason why I redraw all the cards is you want to have as many cards as possible in your hand in order to be able to succeed, especially with a little help from your friends. So we need to meet the requirements of 4 combat. So here we've got 2, 3, 4 combat. We have a total of 3 investigation, which is why we need some help from our friends. We need a total of 5. Well, that's where Faye comes in. We'll probably want to keep hacking as it's a little weaker for both of us. So we spend those. We then reveal an event card. It's vicious this time. Spend 1,000 Mulan if possible. So we just have to spend the 1,000 Mulan, and that would be the end of that. We've completed our session, meaning we're now ready to move on to number 2. Now to show you why it's sort of tricky and you want to make sure you have as much cards as possible, let's try to resolve Faye's now in the same turn after we've just resolved Spike's. So for hers, it needs to be at a bar on Mars. It's going to cost 2,001. It's going to cost us 2 hacking and 4 investigation. So right off the bat, you can see 2 hacking, 4 investigation. It's just not even possible. So we'll move that back up, meaning what we'd have to do is spend some time either, if we had the resting potentially in a bar, which Spike could do to get all of his cards back, and we'll just place the token there. We'll say, Bebop was there. He moved, had a session. Oh, Faye was in the bar. Well, Spike would have to then hopefully have enough actions to move to the bar and reset his hand if we'd want to have any hope of completing Faye's session this turn. So as you can see, it's fairly challenging. I know I probably didn't have enough actions because if they're both on the Bebop, he'd move, complete a session, then move here. So we'll just imagine that Spike, had been here. We started with his session. Good stuff happened. He moved here to join Faye, used the bar's ability, and after she helped him out, well, they're friends, so he's going to try to help her out and complete her session. So for Honky Tonk Woman, we need to spend the 2,000 Mulan. We'll need to spend 2 hacking. Now don't forget we can always use Iron, which he decides to do. And then we need 4 investigation. So here we've got a total of 3 investigation and 4 investigation. Little low on resources though. Hopefully we don't get too difficult of a jam. We reveal the card. It's vicious, so we spend 1 food and discard 2 random cards if possible during a chase. Discard before the requirements. I guess all the vicious cards were stuck together. Wouldn't be that difficult. It's not going to ruin anything. She just has to discard 2 random cards. But we would still succeed putting her on part 2 of her session. So as you can see, sessions really drain all your resources. That's why they are what you need to complete in order to beat the game. So you saw some quick examples of how to play the game. Now Julie and I are going to be keep it in some terminology we have in the game itself. We'll be zipping back at you with our review of the game. So Cowboy Bebop, the board game. What did you think of the game?
Well, you alluded to it in the opening. I want to come out by saying I have no idea about this IP. I'd never heard of it before. So that does have an impact, I think, on...
That being said, I think you should watch it at some point. Sorry to interrupt right there. I actually think you'd enjoy it, even though you're not the biggest anime fan.
Okay.
So go ahead and finish. Sorry.
So some of the things that I noticed that I thought were cool about this game is the way the boards are set up. So you have your different systems that are round, and then the ship basically fits up to one of those systems, I guess you can say. And then you have the playmat at the top. So I thought that was neat. I did enjoy that. I don't know the IP, so for me the art was a little bit drab, but you say it's thematic.
Well, it's because it really isn't art. It stills from the show. So just to comment on that, I think we can say that what you have is thematic to the show It does the job, but it's nothing special. It really is just screen grabs from the show, similar to what we have in like Marvel Legendary or Buffy Legendary. Nothing that we're really excited about, but it's what you got.
Well, see, I was definitely more excited about both Buffy and Marvel than.
But you know those IPs.
Yes. So as for the game itself, it's not a very difficult game, and you alluded to it. If you have cooperative experience, if you've done other cooperative games, this one definitely isn't very complicated. There's not a lot of different techniques coming into play here. You do have to work cooperatively. It is very co-op heavy, I would say.
Oh, I'd say more collaborative, because it's not just cooperation. You really have to collaborate in your movement, where you're going.
Yeah, we'll plan it out together. Basically, you can't try to solo your effort here because it just won't work.
And one thing I do want to stress, we have only played the game at 2 players.
Yes.
I do think there could be some difference at 4 players in terms of how effective some of the
it definitely feels like it would be more fun played 4 players.
Well, you never even once got into your skipcraft. We played multiple games. You never felt the need. You just kind of.
I only twice or 3 times, I think, used in multiple playthroughs, used my abilities. Where normally I love to use my abilities, they just weren't really required in this case. I think you used it once.
I started using it more when I started the piloting ability with regards to the swordfish. That came in handy a few times, and that was very cool. But some of the other abilities, like the one with regards to being able to ignore certain jam types, absolutely never came up. We never had one time when there was like multiple jams that it was worth using a card.
So for me, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point. I think I didn't hate the game. I'll put it out there. I didn't hate it. I also didn't love it. So I think the first time we played, I said, okay, when we were finished. I didn't feel all that excited by it. And the second time we played, it really felt like the same thing. For me, it doesn't ignite satisfaction of having completed the game. It kind of just finishes and I'm like, okay, move on to something else. It's not the best cooperative game I've played. I think compared to other games that we have, this is definitely not something that I'm going to be, chirping up to bring to the table. I'm not going to be like, come on, Jay, let's play this again. Because we know part of what we do is reviewing new games all the time. So there's always a new game coming to the table. Bringing another one back to the table, it has to be pretty good. And in this case, I don't think I'd ever ask you to play this game again.
I think you might ask if we have people interested that say they like the show to play at 4 players. But I do agree with you. I can't see you ever wanting to play this again at 2 players. And what I want to talk about is what I think is one of the greatest assets of this game is also its biggest hindrance. I think the theme and the way that Lynnvander Studios has captured the theme, they've actually captured it quite perfectly, in my opinion, is also the game's biggest hindrance. Because it makes a game that sort of feels a little bit on the drab side. Now, some people might watch Cowboy Bebop and think it's a show all about bounty hunting. Well, the show's about bounty hunting, like the family that you choose, where you end up in life, and also resolving your personal issues and growing. So I really like the fact that the sessions let you resolve those personal issues. It's a really cool aspect of the game, and I think it gets to the core of what the show is, but it doesn't necessarily make it feel very exciting because the bounty hunting and everything else just seems kind of tacked on. Well, not necessarily tacked on, but it's just what you have to do to get to the ability to complete your session. And while that may work in a cinematic aspect, watching a TV show, watching a movie, I don't think it translates necessarily into super cool, interesting gameplay. That being said, for the cost of the game, being able to get this for around, I believe, if you look at Miniature Market, cool stuff, we're looking at $27 to $30 US. I think that you've got a solid Cowboy Bebop game, good mechanics, easy to play, easy to learn, incredibly thematic, but as Julie said, getting a game back to the table for us, we've got a lot of different games. we review games, that means that something that's going to hit the table multiple times needs to be, I'd say, about a 7.5?
Has to be at least a 7.
At least a 7 to a 7.5. Some games that are 7s we're like, yeah, we want to do it again. It might hit the table less often, but I mean, if we're running a Descent campaign, or if we could start a Descent campaign, we're probably going to pick things like that over picking Cowboy Bebop. That being said, I would love to see sort of that aspect of working on your personal goals come out more with a mission mode, maybe even just standees going on missions, trying to, like, you know, defeat bounties, actually having a fight with Vicious, which is, you know, Spike's nemesis, whose cards are used very well, I might add, in terms of how they're implicated into the event system. But it doesn't give, like, you know, the most exciting gameplay. I do think that a more maybe, it's almost like doing a minis heavy dungeon crawl version. I mean, I'm really summarizing it fairly badly in my opinion, but something like that in like this universe with the ability to travel around, pick your bounties, could make a really cool game because I like the characters. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, just from the art, the way the system works, it's something that could draw you in if there was just more depth to it. Yeah. I think you're really just getting the surface level of Cowboy Bebop, meaning that if you don't appreciate like the little thematic text on the cards and you're not getting drawn back into the world, you're going to be missing a large portion of the game.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I think I can add on a little bit when I add my rating. Did you have anything else to say before we rate it?
No, I think that's really everything that I want to say about the game. I don't think the art is a big factor. I will say that like the insert production value and the value of the game are solid. We just both agree that this is not a cooperative game that's going to hit the table for us very often.
So for me, and it doesn't happen very often, this, I mean, and Jason and I have talked about the score we want to give it. I'm going to be giving it a 5. There could have been, I think if there had been improvements, maybe miniatures or something like that could make it a little bit more fun to move things around, like a mini spaceship, things like that, it might have been a 5.5. It might even have been a 6. But to me, it's really a middle of the road game. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I could take it or leave it. And for me, I think that, and that's coming again, like I said, this IP doesn't, I'm not invested in it. I don't know it at all. So it's not bringing anything more to me. And you know, Jason will have a different perspective, but from the perspective of somebody who's never heard of it before and looking for a cooperative game, given everything else that's available and the mechanics of the game and the enjoyment level for me, it's a 5.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add, I think we might be a little harsher on the game than we could be, but I think coming off of just having played Power Rangers, an IP that you've got no experience with, but we had such a good time with that game that coming to an IP that I still really love and then just not having as much of a good time might be skewing our opinions a bit. But I have to agree with Julie, this is a 6. And I think, well, so I don't think, I'm giving it a 6 because it adapts the theme of the show perfectly, which takes it from a very middle-of-the-road game. It's not the best, it's not the worst, and upgrades it to me to an above-average game, a game that will stay in my collection for a bit. How long? I don't know. But it's something that if you are a Cowboy Bebop fan, and I think we can both agree on that, if you love the IP, you know the IP, and unlike us, you do not have a whole slew of other games to play. Like we have other games designed by Lynnvander and games by Jasco that I would actually much rather take out and play than this one. The Buffy game comes to mind, and that's one by both of them. We also have Terminator Genesis, and I'd much rather get that back out, especially with how much fun you had with the expansion, and we've yet to complete the campaign. So that just gives you an idea where we're slotting the game. It's a fine game. I don't think anyone's going to hate their purchase, but I can't see this being something that people are like, this is the best game and one of their favorites. Unless, you know, maybe you don't have nearly as many games as we do.
Or unless you're such a big Cowboy Bebop fan that it's like your X-Files. If you've been watching it, our reviews, you know that I'm a huge X-Files fan. So if this was an X-Files game, I might feel a little differently about it.
That's entirely true. We've yet to review the game, but we have the now out-of-print X-Files game that from IDW. And I will say one thing. the general consensus was it was fun and you liked it way more than everyone else that played it at the table.
Yep.
So this is a great game for Cowboy Bebop fans. It's got a nice value to it. I don't think you'll be disappointed, but it's definitely just not necessarily a game that is a collection essential.
So on that note, I'd say like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think.
Yep.
What about social media, Jason?
Yes, down below in the video description, you can find our social media feeds. You can see some pics of us playing the game. We've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Even get a sneak peek as to some of the stuff that's coming up. I've taken to setting up games with some extra time, taking some pics of the setup, so you'll get an idea as to what we're going to be doing next on the channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you know when we have our next unboxing, our next review. And down below, well, not in the video description, but popping up probably right around here and over there, you'll see links to some of the other videos that we've done on the channel. We'll try to make them thematic as to what we have just reviewed, and hopefully you'll be interested enough to check those out as well. So what time is it, Julie?
I think it's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
We're going to keep playing games.
Definitely going to keep playing games.